Hello there YouTube, I am the Common Sense Guy. I'm going to do a two-part video in this. By that I mean I'm going to do it as a two-halved video. I'm going to do this bit to quickly make a public service announcement. Sorry about my appearance at this moment in time, but I've only literally just got up and I've seen this story that I also want to do, which is the reason why there's two parts to this video rather than just the one. But I have a little bit of an announcement for people that are following me in general. I'm actually finished, and I have finished doing the constitution for the LBP party, the Liberal Britain Party. If you're confused by that name, you probably would be. It's a party that I'm actually trying to create myself. I have done a manifesto for it. I have done a mission statement for it. I have also done a set of principles and guidelines for it. And most importantly, I don't know if I've already said this, but I've done a fucking constitution for it, a party constitution. So in actual fact, I'm literally ready to become a major political party. Or at this moment in time, probably a minor one, but the stepping stones are already put in place for it to be able to come into a major one. The finances are my own, so it's a case of I'm trying to generate a £150 for registration for this party. So I'm going to be doing a live stream on the LBP party tonight from 7 Greenwich Mean Time to 9, which is when I start my show, or our show with Mr. Ogre. But I wanted to do the LBP one because I wanted more people to understand and get the idea of what's going on with that particular idea in that particular party. I wanted to go through the constitution with you as well, the reasons why I chose the things that I have chosen, the reason why I've done it the way that I've done it, and just trying to be as transparent and as honest as possible. And that way hopefully I can actually get some questions and interactions from people in the chat room, and if they have any questions then I can be asked on it and I can explain it. And then once I've done that, I can upload that video to our Facebook page, because we have a Facebook page as well where all of the manifesto, the constitution and the mission statement has already been put down on there. I put myself down as one of the founders as well and one of the team, so you'll be able to find that out as well if you wanted to. So whatever on that one, that's up to you what you want to do on that one. But with that being said, I actually wanted to get into this actual video that I wanted to do. Needless to say, it's about fucking Brexit. It's about fucking Brexit, isn't it? It's always about fucking Brexit. And how the government in itself is still trying to fuck over the will of the people. It's almost like people didn't see this fucking coming. But yet, you know, you still got to go through the processes, haven't you? So I don't know if anybody has heard or hasn't heard, but the Brexit Secretary, David Davis, resigned this morning. Yes, he resigned this morning. But guess what? There's also somebody that's already taken his place. I wonder who that person could be. Do you think that person will be, as Theresa May said at the beginning, to make sure that she has a equal cabinet, as in a certain amount of Remainers and a certain amount of Leavers, so to speak? Do you think that she's done that to make sure that it's equal? Or do you think that she's put a Remainer in? Or do you think that she's put a Leaver in? Let's take a wild guess, shall we? And on that wild guess, let's actually get into the video and actually see who, what, when, where and how. Rab replaces Davis as Brexit Secretary. So at this moment in time, they're not trying to make the main story about Davis leaving now. They're actually trying to make the main story about Dominic Raab, or Mr. Raab, taking Davis's place. The point is that David Davis resigned due to the fact that he believes that Theresa May gave way too much away in the deal that's just happened. He believes, David Davis, in which you can have a look at this and we'll try and see if we can find a statement from him as well. But he believes that Theresa May gave way too much away, and it's a case of this is not the Brexit that he was supposed to be going after. This is only Brexit in name. We're actually having a bad deal, which is what Theresa May was trying to fight against. We're basically still going to be a rule taker, and as Jacob Rees-Mogg has actually said, we're going to be a vassal state because of the deal. Now, this is not a video about the deal. Please go and watch Sticks Exenhammer's 666 video about it. Because surprisingly enough, for somebody that doesn't live in England, he actually knows shit tons more than what most English people fucking know. But with that being said, and trying not to swear too much, but I am annoyed, and I do like the way that the BBC have already twisted this, because when it was broke as Davis leaving. It has now been twisted into Dominic Raab replaces. And it's not a case that he replaces, it's a case that he fills the void. He didn't replace. So, Mr. Raab, who is currently Housing Minister, was a prominent Leave campaigner during the 2006 referendum. To be honest, I actually really did support Mr. Raab when he was actually coming out and he was actually doing it. I've watched him quite a lot on Question Time because when I go and visit my dear old dad, he actually loves watching politics. So generally I don't really watch it too much because it pisses me off. But at the same time, you can't help but overhear things, and Mr. Raab's actually a really good talker. He can articulate his points very well. But this says more about Davis quitting, which if we carry on, Mr. Davis quit early on Monday morning saying Theresa May had given away too much too easily. The 44-year-old Mr. Raab, a lawyer before becoming an MP in 2010, will now take over day-to-day negotiations with the EU's Michel Barnier. That being said, I'm not too sure. I don't know what Mr. Raab's credentials are for negotiating. I don't know where that would stem from. But at the same time, I do think that he could hold his own. I do think that he would be okay. But as I said before, it's the fact that the story in itself is being glossed over. That is the fact that Davis said that he had no choice but to resign. He had no choice in his resignation. But let's carry on and see how the BBC tried to twist it a little bit more to make it all about Dominic Raab instead. He has served in government since after the 2015 election, initially working in the Ministry of Justice before moving to the Committees Department last May, a live reaction to Davis's exit. So Mr. Davis said he could not remain in his post as he no longer believed in the plan for the UK's future relations with the EU backed by the Cabinet on Friday. He said his resignation would make it easier for the UK to resist EU attempts to exact further concessions, but he insisted he was not seeking to underline or challenge the Prime Minister. I really wish that he would have done. I really do wish that he would have done. So I've just decided that I'm going to move on and actually go on to this point. This is BBC's actual story of the Brexit Secretary resigning. There you go, there's the title, which was only 30 minutes ago, so this is live reactions. Brexit Secretary David Davis resigns, as we already know that from the beginning of the video. Brexit Secretary David Davis, who has been leading the UK's negotiations to leave the EU, has resigned from government. He told the BBC that he was no longer the best person to deliver the PM's, Prime Minister's, Brexit plan, because he completely and utterly disagrees with the plan and thinks it's a load of shit. And yes, the last bit is me paraphrasing. But generally, that's the reason why he's actually resigned. It's a conflict of interest. It's the fact that he has put his principles above his ministerial position. I wish a lot more people would be able to do this and actually follow through with it as well, rather than just fretting in it. Because this in itself is an actual point where if the story is generated and pushed, proves the fact that the PM's pushing her own Brexit plan and not the plan of the people's. And the people should be able to actually push the idea that was generally given, the fact that we want a Brexit, we want to leave the customs union, we want to leave the single market, we want to leave the actual, Europe. But apparently not. Apparently, as Jacob Rees-Mogg actually explains, and please go and read his lovely, lovely bit in the Telegraph 2 days ago, Sunday, the fact that it was a case of He thinks that we're going to turn into a vassal state. And looking at his actual points and his actual reasoning behind it, we're still held by the same bureaucratic red tape that we so mightily wanted to leave from, but yet we're still in it. He said the career-ending decision was a personal one, but he felt the UK was giving away too much and too easily to the EU in the negotiations. Mrs. May said she did not agree but thanked him for his work. In other words, fuck off, thank you for your service, try not to cause too much trouble on your way out. The resignation is a blow to Miss May as she seeks to win over Eurosceptic MPs to her proposed Brexit vision, which would form the basis of the UK's position in ongoing talks with the EU. Now, obviously, we go back to the point of Dominic Raab now taking over, and it's fine on that point. The UK is due to leave the European Union on the 29th of March 2019, but the two sides have yet to agree how trade will work between the UK and the EU afterwards. That's not actually true. The thing that they are actually trying to work on the trade is how the customs union will be able to work with Northern Ireland and how that would work. This is a European problem. The fact that their system wouldn't work with our system. And the fact is that we are leaving the EU and it's up to the EU to fix that system for themselves, not us to fix it for them. But you know, like most things, i.e. the human rights bill and putting the ideas of everything else that went into the EU in itself, generally was done by English hands. And no, that's not being me over patriotic. Generally the human rights bill and other ilks were written by, guess what, English lawyers. But you know, it doesn't matter. This is not a stampede on Britain, and this is not a uproar for me to be nationalistic on this issue. It's just the point of Mrs. May Conservatives Party only has a majority in Parliament with the support in key votes of the 10 MPs from Northern Ireland's Democratic Unionist Party, or the DUP if people remember it as that. So any split raises questions about whether her plan could survive a Commons vote, and has also led to renewed questions about whether she will face a challenge to her position. If she keeps going on the way that she is going, unfortunately, people will challenge her leadership, because she is fucking over the one thing that she was put in place to actually fucking do, and that was to get us through Brexit, and get us to as close as possible as to what we could do. And that means leaving the customs union, leaving the single market, not being regulated by the EU itself, and making sure that we can create our own trade deals. With the deal that she is proposing, we cannot create our own trade deals without the explicit acceptance of the EU, because we are so directly aligned with the EU's red tape, the bureaucrats. But you know, there's reasons why people resign, and there's reasons why people call us a vassal state. Again, not getting into the actual views of the deal itself, because a lot of people have already done that beforehand. But for me, it's really, really weird. In a sign of how delicately positioned the numbers are on a Brexit strategy, it has emerged that the government has taken the unusual step of arranging a briefing for opposition Labour MPs on the detail of the Brexit plan agreed on Friday. In other words, they are so scared about what's going on, they want Labour supporters of Brexit, as there is many on the Labour side that voted for leave as well. Remember, it wasn't a case of Labour voted to remain and the Conservatives voted to leave. It was cross-party. Some people wanted to do stuff, some people didn't. Very, very interesting on this point. Very, very interesting. The fact that they are now trying to generally poach people off of different areas because they don't feel that they have a big enough strategy to be able to actually physically work. In his resignation letter, Mr. Davis told Mrs. May that the current trend of policy and tactics was making it look less and less likely that the UK would leave the customs union single market. This is from the Brexit secretary, the one who was able to make sure what was going on in the deal. And he has resigned over the ideas that he still thinks that we are going to be part of the customs union and single market, or the bureaucracy of it all. He said he was unpersuadable that the government's negotiating approach will not just lead to further demands for concessions from Brussels. Mr. Davis, who was appointed Brexit Secretary in 2016, said the general direction of policy will leave us in a weak negotiating position, and possibly an inescapable one. Because at that point in time, you are conceding that you are not going to walk away with no deal. You are conceding that these are the positions that you hold deal, that you want to hold as close as possible to the European Union's idea of trade. Not the idea that we want to make it on our own and be an independent sovereign nation. Now let's go on to Mrs. May's reply. So in her reply, Miss May said, "I do not agree with the characterizations of the policy we agreed at the Cabinet on Friday." She said she was sorry he was leaving, but would like to thank you warmly for everything you have done to shape a departure from the EU. Mr. Davies told BBC Radio's 4 Today programme that he had objected to Theresa May's plan at the Chequers meeting, telling Cabinet colleagues at the outset that he was the odd man out. I don't think he was just the odd man out. I just think other people, like Boris Johnson, decided to toe the party line, because otherwise the fear of another general election, with the way that things are going with the Tory government in itself, and as bad as Jeremy Corbyn is, he's doing the right thing on Brexit and not saying a word on it, so the Tories can destroy themselves. And that's all that you really got time for, to be fair. Let's have a look at and listen to the actual interview that BBC Radio 4 actually did.
When we debated this at Cabinet on Friday, my opening remark to Theresa was, Prime Minister, as you know, I'm going to be the odd man out on this. And she knew that because I'd written to her earlier the week telling her...
But you supported her?
No, it's Cabinet collective responsibility applies. I didn't say anything thereafter. And that was because I was thinking about the consequences. I took the view at the time that this was not the best strategy, that there were better strategies available. We'd been establishing them. And that I thought it would, as you said, be a risk at least of delivering a poor outcome. So I was very clear on Friday, and I took 2 days to think through. It's a very important, and for me, it's a very important decision. In my view, this policy has got a number of weaknesses, and it's not as though it's somebody else's responsibility for which I can sort of share cabinet responsibility. I would be front and centre in delivering this policy, explaining it to the House, persuading the House it was right, and then going out and delivering it with the European Union. And frankly, just as it was known that there were what the policy was, it was also known that I had concerns about it. It would not have been a plausible thing to do, and I wouldn't have done a good job at it. And one of the things I said to the Prime Minister in the letter was, I hope you're right. I hope I'm wrong. And but if that is the case, then the best person to do this is somebody who really believes in it, not me.
So that in itself was Mr. David Davis explaining his reasons why. The fact that he didn't agree with the process, that he believes that there is too many weaknesses in this process, in this deal, and yet that he knew that he was going to be the odd man out, and he knew that he wasn't going to agree with Theresa May on this point, and the realisation that he would actually come to the point of actually saying to people, this is what I believe in, and he knew that he didn't, and knowingly, which is very rare for a politician, he stuck to his principles and was actually able to steer the ship and actually decide and actually say to everybody, look, this is wrong, what we're actually producing is wrong. The fact is that David Davis should be applauded for the fact of drawing this to people's attention. The fact that the Brexit Secretary in himself is saying that the deal that Theresa May is trying to propose is absolutely laughable and should be struck off and rethought. So with that all being said, I think it's best for me to say au revoir, farewell, adieu, auf Wiedersehen, I'll see you all again. But first of all, don't forget to like this video, don't forget to subscribe to this video, and don't forget to check out my new videos. See you all again real soon. Bye-bye for now.